Welcome to Trauma-Focused Equine-Assisted Services and part 1 of this mind-body connection, where we connect simple yet novel lessons of horsemanship with mental health concerns that are rooted in the neurobiology of trauma. I am your host, Terry Vaughn, and this is where we learn exactly how and why horses help in trauma recovery. Whether you're here to learn more about trauma, you work in any helping profession, or you're interested in starting a new and interesting career that incorporates mental health with the team approach, this video is for you. The main topics covered in this video are understanding that we cannot separate the mind from the body and the importance of holistic interventions. And if you're already helping others, learning that we must first look at ourselves and acknowledge how trauma has impacted us personally. We will cover the depths of the neuroscience, the importance of emotional regulation in our relationships, and strategies for gaining these skills in future videos. But for now, let's keep it simple and watch how the horses reveal more about trauma on the body and this mind-body connection.
If you tie a hind leg up on a horse and you put him on a pulley high on a post, and every time he jumps or fights to resist whatever you're doing with him, you pull his head right up high, it supposedly causes him to be so uncomfortable when he does that he quits. As a matter of fact, he does.
Monty Roberts also grew up witnessing abuse. He's now best known for his revolutionary training technique called join-up that he developed while gentling wild horses. Let's begin transforming trauma into trauma-informed care. So, what is trauma? We learned a lot about trauma back in the 90s when Kaiser Permanente initiated research originally designed to study obesity. That study later revealed surprising results about traumatic events and toxic stress, especially when experienced early in life. Simply stated, trauma is when we experience a life-threatening, extremely disturbing event. It can be physical or emotional and have long-term negative effects that deeply impact our sense of safety. The A.C.E study revealed that trauma affects the mind and body and can create physical disease later in life. Here's a clip from one of the most widely viewed TED Talks discussing the A.C.E study.
With ACEs and toxic stress, it's going to take determination and commitment. And when I look at what our nation's response has been so far, I wonder, why haven't we taken this more seriously? And I'm beginning to believe that we marginalize the issue because it does apply to us. Maybe it's easier to see in other zip codes because we don't want to look at it. We'd rather be sick.
Science has been looking at trauma through the scope of war and the effects on soldiers now for more than 260 years. The A.C.E study has been acknowledged now for almost 30 years. And I'm left wondering the same thing as what you just heard from Nadine Burke-Harris. You see, science can only take us so far. We have to be willing to apply the science. We need to first look at ourselves to have a clear perspective on just how pervasive trauma is. It's time to implement trauma-informed care. I'd like to begin by sharing a bit of my own story and how I've come to learn about trauma. You see, I've been around horses since I was a little girl, and I know how healing the human-horse connection can be. But it wasn't until 2011 when I was first introduced to what we now refer to as trauma-focused equine-assisted services that I began to learn just how horses can be utilized so effectively in trauma recovery. For many of us, horses represent freedom. Yet our tactics for breaking or gentling a horse often result in violence and abuse. As a girl, I witnessed countless acts of such experiences. And over the years, I started to recognize the parallel that horses and humans often share. Biologically, humans and horses are not all that different, as we are both mammals. When we experience an intensely fearful state in our bodies, it creates never-ending loops of inescapable fear throughout all of our brain-body systems. We cannot separate the mind from the body. Trauma requires a holistic approach to treatment. We need to consider the emotional energy created in both mind and body. Trauma damages these brain-body systems, and this negative emotional energy can get lodged within these systems. When traumatic experiences happen, especially in early childhood, it impacts these brain-body systems in many ways. But for the purpose of this brief training, we will simply suggest two main areas to consider regarding the mind and body. On the mind, trauma damages our ability to trust one another. And on the body, trauma keeps us in a perpetual state of fear and survival. It's almost as if the chemicals involved in the fight-flight-freeze system never fully get turned off, much like a leaky faucet. These chemicals then impact our thoughts and behaviors, which ultimately continue to impact our relationships, further damaging our ability not only with trusting others, but also our ability to trust ourselves. Your emotional intelligence and ability to regulate and understand your own emotions is vital to your sense of happiness and ability to unlock the limiting patterns that we all share for learning how to transform trauma into trauma-informed care. Reconnecting these brain-body sensations takes time and trust. It cannot be rushed, and learning to trust again begins with respecting one another and making small, reasonable requests where we can learn to safely respond and connect again. In review, trauma changes our brain-body systems, creating emotional energy that can create disease, and requires healthy, safe relationships to heal and repair. And with trauma-informed care, it begins with us and our ability to regulate our own emotions. Listen to your body and practice building trust with yourself and others.